On Friday, OPEC and some non-affiliated suppliers agreed to an oil supply cut of 1.2 million barrels a day from January. It's led to a price of Brent climbing on Monday. Now, Chris Breden-hann is a director at PwC, and he joins me now via Skype for more. Chris, thanks for your time. We appreciate it. Firstly, the important stuff. What does this mean for fuel prices next year in South Africa?
Yeah, good evening. I think we're seeing a lot of volatility in the oil prices, and we've seen over the past few weeks a drop in the oil price, which has given us some well-deserved relief just before the holiday season. What this production cut means is it shows an attempt to boost oil prices again. So we should expect that the oil prices would increase from the current levels, and the impact of that obviously will be felt at the pump price level as well.
So we're going to see increases in South Africa given the increase in the price of Brent crude. Unfortunate for us, but Brent price is increasing after this news, as you mentioned, but the outlook for next year remains muted, some say, especially internationally. Explain that for us.
Yeah, that is absolutely correct. I think what we've seen, the two key factors impacting oil prices. So on the one side, it's the supply and demand dynamics that are normal features of any transaction environment, and the other side is geopolitics. In the past, OPEC had quite a lot of power and control to influence pricing, and through production cuts or increases in production, able to manage oil prices within a certain band that was acceptable to them as a cartel. What we've seen, however, is that the dynamics within the oil industry changing. And some are questioning the power that OPEC would have, that it could exert on to influence prices. The reality, I think, where we find ourselves today, that rather than OPEC, there are the three big players that actually influence the pricing of oil at the moment, and that's the United States, Russia, and Saudi Arabia. The rest of the OPEC members don't have as much of an influence anymore. Between those three countries, they control about a third of the global production, and therefore what they do has a big influence on prices. There are indications of muted economic growth and muted demand growth, and as a result of that, we're not anticipating this increased oil price, and we are expecting that muted response that you mentioned as well.
And then not all analysts expect the cuts of 1.2 million barrels a day to actually be sufficient to end oversupply. What are your thoughts on that regard?
I tend to agree with that assessment, and especially in the context of what we've seen and what I've just mentioned around the big players. So the North Americans with the shale revolution have been able to push up their supply from very relatively low levels to around about 11, 12 million barrels a day. And that is quite significant. So they'll continue to pump at prices that are acceptable to them, continuing potentially with adding to oil reserves building up. And as oil reserves build up, you get this oversupply situation and downward pressure on oil prices again.
All right, thank you so much for your time and your insight. We appreciate it. That was Chris Breden-hann, Director at PwC.